Ho! Welcome to another episode of the Growth Compass. Shout out to our sponsor senders. If you want to do cold email deliverability correctly, hit the link in the description. But without them, it would not be possible to interview awesome people doing crazy things like Joanne. Welcome.
Hi, Blake. Thank you. Excited to be
This,
here.
oh, I don't. Yeah, I would use that word. I don't think it encapsulates. I think what I'm feeling because of the tech that you're putting into the world of how you're doing it. The company that you keep. All of these things. I'm just super excited to get into. Other than what you're building right now, what you have done, what you've been involved in, all of these things. So, if somehow somebody out there doesn't know, if you could just give a quick introduction of yourself and what you're building.
Sure. Well, I'm Joanne Rodriguez, and I'm the founder of Mycocycle. And I affectionately like to say we train mushrooms to eat trash and create renewable bio-based ingredients. But what we've done since launching is to create a biomanufacturing platform that upcycles waste, creates it into a feedstock, so waste to value transformation, and creates new replacements for plastic polymers and other petrochemicals using mushrooms. And so we're green tech, climate tech, nature tech, but the best way to think about it is that we're biotech. We're a manufacturing platform. Nature just happens to be our machine. So.
Wow, that I think you've done this a couple times. That was very elegant. Thank you so much for that. So just before we there's so much to cover with how it got started, where you guys have been at, how it's been to grow. You mentioned product market fit earlier, but before we get into that, I just wanted to know, how did you get here? Like, what were you doing before you founded the company? I see the company's about 7 years old, 6 or 7.
Yeah, we have our 8th birthday coming up in October. So,
Whoa!
yay.
Happy birthday. Happy
Thank
early
you.
birthday. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what were you doing before that brought
So
you
I
into that?
spent about 30 years in construction products and material manufacturing in the built environment space. So 17 years I worked for a manufacturer of exterior building components. So think about your roofs and walls and how they keep you safe from the elements. We provided the chemicals that we would put on the building exterior. So I was a former director of sustainability and I co-chaired green chemistry. And I really came to learn about these issues as we were trying to create zero waste for not only our company, but for the industry at large. And so fast forward to 2017, I kind of got tired of working for corporate America. I said, this is it. So I left and I started an environmental consulting firm focused on green infrastructure and high performance building envelope and regenerative architecture and design. And I happened to take a course in permaculture design at Oregon State University. And I learned about the power of fungi and their abilities to be nature's recyclers, to remediate heavy hydrocarbons, just like the chemicals that we found in our materials. And I had a bit of a light bulb moment and found a mycologist who's a scientist of fungi, right? And we put some spores on some roof shingles and it grew within 7 days. So I formed a company and filed a patent. And that was in 2018, October 2018, but I didn't launch the company until 2020. So that's kind of the abridged version of how
Yeah.
we got here.
Yeah. So then technically speaking, this isn't the first company that you've launched, because the first would be the consulting company.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it like that, like as a, I, yes, this would probably be my second company. I think about this as being a company though, right?
Sure.
Because the consultancy was just me. And I was doing a lot of education nationwide and globally on stormwater management and biophilic effect and biomimicry. This one, now we have 15 employees and we're deployed in over 20,000 square feet. And so it feels like company, like big C. So
Company. Yeah.
company. Yeah. So I didn't look at me as a consultant. I was just trying to cover my net.
Okay.
So
Yeah. 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 All right. So then when you had that light bulb moment, something I always love asking people is, it's not huge, and much more than I do about it, but there are people in the space, there are companies in the space tackling these problems. So when you had this light bulb moment, why was it that you said, I'm going to start a company and file a patent, which is one of the hardest things, a person could choose to do, instead of saying, wow, let me take all of my experience and my knowledge and really catalyze that something else that someone else is doing? Why was it your own venture?
Uh, I think I just wanted to control my own destiny. I would think that when you talk to many founders, particularly first time founders, they don't know what they don't know. So I was just like, I just want to at least protect this as an asset. Because I had the emotional maturity to think about that. What that looked like though, I had no idea. So it took talking to some other people that were working in the mycelium space or with fungi to kind of gain a sense of, is this a good idea?
Sure.
And then, um, and then I became aware of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I was like, I didn't know what that was, right? I'm not coming out of a university system into entrepreneurship or something like that. I have a pretty robust career. But I wasn't surrounded by innovation arms. And so it just became this whole exploration in 2019 to say, I was still doing consulting work, and I started to dip my toe into doing an incubator. I did an incubator here in Chicago called 1871. It was a Latinx incubator. And um, it kind of taught me the whole basic, product market fit, all of the mapping strategies you get as a startup. And then I went into the Clean Tech Open National Accelerator that year. And then I decided, there's some there. So that's what kind of gave me the confidence to go after this a little bit. And I bootstrapped this up until midway through 2020. And I launched it just in time, though, for the pandemic. So March of 2020.
Yeah,
And
just in
so,
time.
so it was perfect timing. And so it's kind of like, well, I'm here now. I might as well see what I can do with it. So
So you were simultaneously testing this idea, the validity of this idea, while still doing consulting and
yeah,
bootstrapping that way.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm a
Okay,
dog
so then
mom. Yeah.
yeah, so three additional jobs, including the two businesses. That
Yeah, well, yeah, right. And so just really got to be mindful of trying to forge ahead. I mean, I'm just like, if I could just get progress every day, I felt like I was doing okay. So like just really trying to teach myself, how do you start a company? What are the tools that are around you? What is entrepreneurship? Like,
sure.
what are the next best steps rather than just trying to do something blindly?
Yeah, Joanne, I thank you for sharing that piece of it, because I think that's powerful what you're saying, and I think it's really important. And I don't know, I think it's very easy, because I mean myself, I always do this to try to keep myself in check. But when you just show up on your page, for me, like one of somebody that I really respect, like they put out good content, they posted about you, and I'm like, wow, this person's doing crazy stuff, and it's like, wow, she's all the way up there. I want to be up there, but I'm so far, but it's important to remember, like, hey, this took time, this takes consistently, stuff like that. And so it was about 2.5 years of you validating this idea, consulting, running a family, for you to then be like, this is what I'm going to do full time. Is
Yeah,
that
it
right?
really, because I thought it was hubris, right? I mean, like we have a family, like I could just go work for another corporation and
Sure.
have a nice cushy salary, and I didn't collect a paycheck for years. And so I think it really, these conversations around entrepreneurship and how we get to here, we forget that there's like a lot of rungs in the ladder. We can have these big dreamy ideas, but and you've got to find people that can support you too. So there were a lot of voluntolds that were around me that were kind of
Sure.
helping me. Some were in the space, some outside of it, looking at it differently. And for me, like to do something, this is the first of a kind, right? So there are people that do do work in mycoremediation and bioremediation. So purely environmental applications is how it's been used. So Paul Stamets used mycoremediation to clean up oil spills and stuff like that. And then you have others like Ecovative, they're making biocompostable packaging. So you have this other end of the spectrum where the mycelium, that rich structure, is being used to replace plastics. There was no one really in the middle trying to transform waste to value via mycology. And so I think a lot of it was also education, my education, but then outward education, had this conversation around this issue of waste in the construction industry. Like, a lot of people are like, that's not a big enough issue. And then I was like, maybe it's not. I don't know. Like, I thought it was. And then,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's like I keep finding study after study, and I'm like, oh, I think this is a big enough issue. So I do think it takes some time to level set. We aren't building like a platform, like, where I could sign up 1 million users tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
This is like a hard tech play of a first of a kind nature, and you have to be able to stick the landing in order to be able to grow effectively.
Yeah. So, well, exactly, and I think because of that reason, because that comparison, we're not signing 1 million, users tomorrow. I think it'd be useful if we continued with the journey. So, let's say, um, so to you, when you say I officially launched it, how do you define that? Does that mean finding co-founders? Does that mean raising your first round of investment? How do you define that?
I think for me, it was like publicly, I was with the National Renewable Energy Labs at their industry growth forum, and it was coming out and doing a very outward pitch that, and the ask being, we're looking for pilot partners, right, and pilot customers. And then going, I was at a conference the week prior, just as everything was shutting down for the pandemic, and meeting with clients in the waste space, and having people, lining up, and then just starting to engage those conversations. So one of the clients that came forward at that point in time is still with us today. So I think for me, launching was really like, I wasn't looking back, like the horse is out of the barn. So that,
Sure.
and I think it was a strong signal. We got picked up in a lot of applications. I mean, mushroom tech's cool.
Yeah.
And so there was that kind of started the whole span of education and outward marketing around the organization that wasn't really in place prior to that.
So for you personally, did you have a team at this point? Did you have co-founders at this point? Like, how did that work for you?
Solo founder, because let's just keep making it harder and harder, right?
That's right. That's right. How can I make this as hard as possible for
Let's
you?
do it alone during the pandemic. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a couple of colleagues. So somebody that I had met at 1871 was helping do finance and kind of business,
Okay.
consulting and accounting and
Sure.
volunteering. And then I had another friend, a lifelong friend, early advisor, who was in the marketing sector. So she was helping, get collateral pieces together. And then as the story was getting out there were people just kind of coming out and reaching out saying, how do we help? And so I was able to build like this stable of resources to be able to tap into. And building in the pandemic, while hard, also made it easier to get to global resources. So to learn
Interesting.
more about networks and people operating this space, or resources to actually build a company that I might not have been able to get to before. So that was really advantageous as well.
So then from that standpoint, let's take it. So you officially launched. You said there was a request for pilots, and that's something that you got involved with. So let's just take that first year or first 2 years, whatever
Yeah.
is useful from your perspective. But so I'm assuming you ran at least that one pilot. Did you have several pilots? Did you hire anybody within that first 2 years?
Yeah, so I hired a scientist. Well, I largely a hobbyist. Mycologists are hard to find, like,
Sure.
right. So I was working with a mycologist out of the Pacific Northwest. So I'm outside of Chicago. He was outside um, of Portland. So running tests long distance and just trying to oversee them and set aims and try to understand that. And then I started working with a first client, doing some R&D studies around rubber work and applications in that sector, for commercial infill projects. That work continued on into 2021, um, and in 2021 also gained a few more research clients. So in large part, level setting what we could and couldn't do. I raised a pre-seed round of funding, so I was able to establish a lab here By 2021,
Were you
our
doing
and
outreach yourself personally to find these research partners?
I did. Yeah, it was a
Wow.
lot of work. Yeah.
Not
So I
really,
mean,
yeah.
I'm a citizen scientist. I'm not a scientist. So,
Yeah,
like
sure,
just
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to get to all of that. And I spent a lot of time online reading and researching and so I mean but it got us to where we had a physical lab space here in 2022 outside of Chicago, and that started to set the footprint for our headquarters and allowed for more people to be hired in at that point in time.
Awesome. So then I guess that would be the next inflection point in this story is approximately three, maybe. Well, what is that? You said 2022, so
Two
that's
and a,
about.
it was like 2.5 years. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It
yeah.
was,
So then at that point, so something that I think is amazing. It's I think it gets brushed over a lot because there's a lot of conversations about investment and like, oh, just the typical like, oh, there are people. But when you're doing this type of tech, when you're doing this type of free R&D, when you're doing this type of stuff that is, first of its kind, like you're saying, like the transition from just doing pilot research stuff where people are like, yeah, like this is a cool idea, let's see if it works, to okay, we have a business, we have a product, we have things that people pay for, we have a revenue stream. Like that is it. Literally, to me, seems like magic. Like it's amazing that people can get over that hump. Like that's so inspiring to me. So, what did I guess let's take it from that milestone to where you set up an HQ and started hiring people. Like, how did those R&D relationships evolve, and where did they stand? Turn into more significant relationships, things like that.
yeah. So I mean, the goal was always to move this one step further, and so as word started getting out, and like we reach back to my 30 years of network experience in the building
As you
sector.
should.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That paid off too. So started to have some of those conveners come to the table as people could start. The pandemic's over. People could start to get out, do physical projects again, and so we started to have some large scale projects engage out in the field. One of them down in Tennessee around rubber processing, actually asphalt roof processing from the Army. So it was had been some contacts made along the way, and one of them, an early advisor of mine, Chris Batterson. He worked for a waste consolidator, and he had waste streams that they couldn't get rid of. He was one of our first advisors, and he's like, "Well, let's see if it can go through your process." And so the network effect, we can't underscore the impact and the
Right.
enormity of the network effect, right? So he was able to bring this large client lend lease to the table. We did
Wow.
a couple ton trial out in the field. Then that led to another project with Meta, who he brought to the table. So on
Wow.
gypsum drywall. So it just started to get bigger and bigger, where not only were we like focused on this remediation piece, but now we were starting to track to say, okay, what does this look like after we treat it? Like we hadn't established that this was an ingredient for anything yet. And so we had one piece of the equation, but not both pieces in the circular economy play, right? And the funny thing about waste, it's cheap and easy to throw it away.
Yeah.
People don't like it, but they won't pay more to get rid of it
Right.
responsibly. So we really had to establish this value stream, and so that's what was happening in this next phase was, not only back end engineering our species selection and our process and how we scale it, but then how do we get it out into the field to treat materials? How do we validate what we do? How do we then turn all of these into long term customers or larger opportunities for growth? And so the Meta project specifically was parlayed into another project that we did outside of Kansas City, Missouri, and where we had our first deployment of a mobile bioprocessor called the MyContainer. So, out of necessity to house a biological process like ours, we created another enabling technology. So there's this constant creation
Yeah. Wow.
within what we created.
So and again, all of this, like you're saying, compound effect. You said network effect. All of these things. Like this is you. There's no business development arm. There's not like an additional. Everyone is R&D creating the technology. Things like this.
Yeah, I was CEO, CMO, all C's, like
All C's.
all C's. Yeah, all C's at the time, and and that's my background. Really is in marketing and sales and business development, and thankfully there's a technical side to that, being able to communicate the technology
Sure,
without
sure.
overwhelming people. So um, but yeah, that's I had a team of about 4 or 5 people at that point in time. I did have a scientist that I had contracted with, and he was working with us. And then it was around 2023 that we brought in a VP of operations to help out. And so that's probably the next inflection point, because we grew our facility from just shy of 2,000 square feet to close to 6,000 square feet, and started scaling equipment, and needed some help, needed more hands.
Yeah. Wow. Well, congratulations on all of that. Seriously, I think that is, like I said, I think it's magic stuff that you do. So I appreciate all the consistency day after day, because that's what it takes. So let's take it then. So again, thank you for walking through all of that. I think it's important people have a better understanding of how companies like yours. It seems like magic, but it's a lot of hard work, consistency, things like this. Let's take it from right now where you're at,
Yeah.
and how are you how are you approaching growth? Like how are you approaching customer acquisition, fundraising, like commercializing, like whatever
Yeah.
your focus is right now? How are you approaching that?
Gosh, my focus over the last 4 years, in large part, has been on fundraising. Like I remember an early mentor told me, "You're going to be, your number one job's going to be raising funds." I'm like, that can't be. So I will have raised over $10 million over the
Amazing.
last 4 years to get us into position to be prepared for our Series A. Um, Time, in customer acquisition, looking at customers who will buy again. So, like I said early on, I don't need a million users. I've always looked at it as it's a lot easier to maybe have 10 huge companies that we can work with, that we could continue to sell and develop with. And so we really have that to where we're over a million ARR, last year, and this year we're well over that. So our growth trajectory is set on a key 5 to 10 customers, and we engaged them early on. One of them with exclusivity to try to give them a head start in a sector. So and that has allowed us to learn as well as them learn, and to get products into development, which is key and critical. But we've had kind of happy accidents where products went to plastics compounders. They were able to blend them and replace different things like cellulose to create more, reduce the need to extract virgin resources, so polyethylene or polypropylene, and we could replace some of those virgin polymers with our upcycled materials from waste. Those are huge modifiers for us in going out into the field, where now we sell to one person, and that one person can sell to like 20 people. So just trying to be really smart that as we grow the organization, so now we're in over 20,000 square feet, but with the same 15 people. How do we keep the overhead low, the capex low? How do we keep a margin positive or margin competitive product out there? So
Sure.
those have been like key North Stars for us, as well as continuing to back end the solutions and guarantee consistency of the product that we deliver.
Yeah. So with all that considered, and like you said, being the happy accidents, like being fluid with the opportunities that present themselves as far as the additional value propositions, different messaging, customers, like all of these new things. Like, to what extent now are you seeking to be not as fluid, like more rigid with
Yeah.
your offering and your propositions? Like you're not looking for any more opportunities,
We're
like you're
not. We're
going,
not. Yeah. No, we that's you've got us to present day, Blake. That's legit where we are. Like our demand is eclipsing our ability to supply. So we're like, we don't, no mas. Like, let's just, right? We want to be able to deliver on the contracts we have and grow those contracts. The opportunities are
Okay.
significant. And so, with that comes a level set of what our leadership looks like moving
Hmm.
forward, the consistency of our operations, making sure that we're capitalizing on the opportunities that we have here, so we don't lose them. It took a long time to get some of them into place, but now they're there, right? And we offer industry solutions, not just one customer solution. So that's really where we are. It's just now
Hmm.
where we were focused on this treatment piece, we're really on the optimization of the materials we sell, our actual ingredients, as a part of this biomanufacturing platform. So we're stabilized.
Good.
We're
Good. Well,
stabilized. We're stabilizing. Yeah,
yeah.
we're not like just throwing stuff at the wall to see what will
No, of
stick
course.
anymore. So
Yeah. Good. 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 Well, that's awesome. Some in an interesting topic in a couple of conversations recently has been the role of regulation, especially when it comes to clean tech and to like to condense to a very simple statement like regulation can be an accelerator, like a
mhm.
super accelerator, but if you build your core proposition around just complying with regulation, then it's not really a company that you have because it's so volatile. So what is the role that regulation plays with your customer base, with your value proposition, things like that?
For us, fundamentally, you hit the nail on the head. We've never built the company to meet regulatory because of that reason. But we are the beneficiaries of regulatory coming through with extended producer responsibility, particularly in California, around commercial flooring products like carpet. Within the next 3 years, if you're going to sell in that economy, and it's the fourth largest economy in the world, you have to go from carpet to carpet, like flooring to flooring. They can't use PET water bottles anymore. So that has brought a lot of advancement to us, a lot of commercial interest. The other thing happening right now is then the tariffs. And so we're US based, we're US based materials, and we're selling to US based suppliers. And that is a favorable situation for us as the cost of raw materials that ship overseas increases. We are getting a favorable bump there too.
Okay, great. Well, what do you see as far as the spread of uh, companies getting into mycelium, fungi applications, things like this? Just a quick from
Yeah,
your perspective.
it was only a matter of time, right? Everyone's like, "What's your moat?" My
Well,
moat is
everyone's like Joanne's doing it. Then we got to get into it.
right. Well, that's yeah, sure, because I'm so cool, you know.
Right.
No, I think I think there were people that were just waiting on the periphery to see if it could scale and like could you make money and could it grow. So there have been people that have dabbled, but really nobody doing end to end solution like this. I think you'll see more
Okay.
companies.
Okay. Cool. And then finally, there's two questions I'm curious. Given everything that you've experienced, your answer to these two. So the first one is, at the moment, what would you describe as your biggest hurdle, and also how is it an opportunity?
Hurdle, female founder. I wish it wasn't that, but it's true, and it's tough for female founders out there. So I also think that's the biggest opportunity because we run a really efficient operation and work very very hard and super knowledgeable. So pro and con, can't change who I am, wouldn't change who I am, but we really do need to kind of think about how we get more resources to the female leaders out there.
Shout out female founders. Thank you,
Woo!
Joanne. Let's go. Well, I guess along the same lines, of similar questions. There's so much work that you're doing. The barrier that you just described. What inspires you to keep going?
Female founders.
Nice.
They do, but Mother Earth. I really
Yeah.
am inspired by nature. I think our the answers to some of our largest issues globally are just underfoot. I think we have to pay attention and get more connected to what's happening out in the world around us. And not only because we might see the solution like fungi decaying a log, but because it will help our minds be clearer, and we could have better cohesive thoughts around issues, even simple ones, and how to solve them. I think there's just like a lot of noise and a lot of distraction, and it would do us good to get out in nature a little bit more. So I'm always inspired by nature.
Good. Well, that's a beautiful thing. Well, you're helping make it more abundant and stronger, and
I hope so.
hopefully coexist better with some humans. So thank you so much for doing that. If anyone else was inspired to connect or follow along with your journey, what's the best way to do that?
I would go to the website, go to LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn. That's my only social platform these days.
Good.
But yeah, and if you, I mean, going to the website, there's contact us that'll filter through and get to me. But yeah, I'm always happy to talk. And if someone's looking to get into the space, I'm happy to have these conversations and even align with resources like the Biomimicry Institute and others that are bringing along nature inspired inspirations and helping them get to scale. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, there are resources out there.
Well, thank you so much, Joanne.
You're
Thank you
welcome,
for
Greg.
being a
Thank
source of
you.
inspiration. Absolutely. And I'm very excited to see. It's amazing how far you've come, and it's very exciting to see where you will go. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.